What does this mean for those people living there?
Yeah, I mean, it's the end to decades of probably one of the most brutal, horrific regimes on the planet. I mean, it's important as we look at this moment to not forget what Bashar al-Assad stood for. This was the man who used sarin gas to kill, essentially, it ended up being children in a basement in the eastern areas of Damascus in 2013. This is a man whose security forces were responsible for horrific scenes when the river in Aleppo was suddenly awash with the bodies of bound men who'd been shot at point blank range. This is the man behind the phrase starve or surrender, used against rebel areas where they were denied any kind of supply or food during the regime tactics. And I remember too myself, just on a very basic level, the ferocity of regime, the brutality, the clumsiness of regime airstrikes in Aleppo at the beginning of the civil war. I remember seeing the bodies of 9 children brought out under the collapsed ruins of one house. You couldn't get more brutal or horrific than Bashar al-Assad. And while he clearly won that civil war through Russian support, Iranian support, it was the Syria that came afterwards that was still so repressive, so reliant, it clearly seems now, on Moscow and Tehran's support. And I think a symbol in the region of how dictatorship and ghastly brutality could actually win out. And I think also, too, a worrying reminder for many that if wars like that go on long enough, essentially it's the extremists, in the case of the extremists as part of the opposition, that's sort of spun off to get al-Qaeda allegiances, and even some of them become part of ISIS, that can often become a risk too. So a deeply powerful moment here, certainly, Victor, and one too that I speak an awful lot about exactly where we're headed going forwards. We don't know what kind of governors HTS, the group that are behind this rebel movement, are actually going to end up being. We know they have Islamist roots. We know of their previous terror affiliations that they now fervently deny. We know Turkey has clearly a strong hand in all of this, but we know Turkey too has in the past tried to have people of that kind of affiliation. I remember in 2013 watching significant numbers of individuals from around the world go across the border into Syria to fight the regime, and so many of them ended up becoming what we later saw as being ISIS. So Turkey have seen this kind of move go wrong before. Not to say they haven't learned their particular lesson here in their involvement in this case, but also too, you're hearing a lot from forces of moderation here who see this as a great moment of freedom. I remember as well spending time with them at the beginning of the civil war and seeing how their bickering between each other often led them nowhere. It's a different Syria this morning, a lot of hope, a lot of desperate belief that democracy can finally win out. But I think a lot of warning signs from the past as well here. We're in that kind of moment of great jubilation that Syria so deeply and richly deserves right now, and hope for the future. But you just have to remember how torturous the past has been. That will echo on in terms of people's desire to see vengeance, potentially people's desire to have their beliefs win out. And so I don't think we're into an easy journey ahead at all.
So we're just crossing now into Syria. It's astonishing to see. It's absolutely empty. The border points before, there would have been soldiers, there would have been border guards. Now there is absolutely nobody from the Syrian regime. Just a few friendly people waving us through. And honestly, the last time I came down this road was back in 2011. I was leaving Syria. I had been undercover in Damascus, posing as a tourist, went back into Lebanon, and I never imagined this moment would come when we would be driving through this border with no one from the regime to stop us. We've just now entered the city of Damascus, and you can probably see it's very quiet. There is a curfew in place from 4 p.m. to 5 a.m., but we do see some cars on the road, a lot of them driving with their hazards and approaching very cautiously. We saw some tracer fire as we were entering the city, but now it seems as though it is relatively calm. It's just honestly so surreal to be driving through these streets knowing that Bashar al-Assad is never coming back after more than 50 years of Assad rule.
Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
So this man is from the city of Homs. He is obviously completely overcome with joy. We are just now about 20 miles from the Syrian border, and you can see celebrations are breaking out everywhere. This woman actually has just offered me some sweets. مبروك انت لبنانية مش من سوريا؟ بس تسلموا يديك تسلموا يديك. This is the mood right now. It is festive. It is jubilant. Take a look with me. You can see people are waving the flag of the Syrian revolution. It has got 3 stars. You can see children. And it's just an extraordinary moment. I think no one realized that this would ever actually happen. After so many years of waiting, so many years. A lot of fireworks as well. Let's keep moving. You can see the traffic is now barely moving. There's just so much energy.
We have new video in this morning. It shows rebels escorting Syria's prime minister reportedly to a hotel to officially hand over government authority. Shortly before that, the prime minister released this message. He said he was ready to work with new leadership.
We are ready to cooperate with any leadership the people choose, offering all possible support to ensure a smooth and systematic transition of government functions, preserving state facilities.
The prime minister said this happened very quickly, with rebels sweeping through the country since launching the offensive last week. And they claimed to have captured 4 cities in a single day before reaching Damascus. And now the rebels are questioning Syrian military officers and others trying to find Bashar al-Assad. Even they made it here, you can see, inside his palace. We begin our team coverage with CNN chief international anchor Christiane Amanpour, who is live in Doha. Christiane, to you, with this rapid advance and overthrow, as we welcome in a new audience at the top of the hour, just set the context for us, what this means for the Syrian people, for the larger region, and, you know, some of those questions that we'll have to wait to get answers to.
Indeed, Victor. So the Turkish foreign minister has just finished a press conference in which he said, "We woke up this morning to a totally new Syria. The Assad regime has fallen. It's over." This wasn't just 50 years of dictatorial rule. It was one family rule that had a lock on Syria for the last 5 decades. And this all spiraled and started back in 2011, about 13 years ago, along with the Arab Spring, when the Syrians, young Syrians in the town of Deraa tried to, protest the Assad government. They weren't even calling him to be overthrown by that. And they just wanted democracy, freedom, the kind of things young people want. The Assad regime reacted very strongly and brutally, and that's what's launched this 13-year civil war. Now, I asked the foreign minister, where is Assad? Is he in the country? And this is what he said. Okay, apparently you don't have that. Apparently you don't have the soundbite, but what he actually said was, I can't comment. And then under pressing from me, he said, I think he's probably now out of the country. So that is what they think. Now, Turkey is a big backer of the anti-Assad forces. Since the beginning, Turkey has been essentially with the anti-Assad forces. Now, while they're not officially taking a massive, victory lap, they're clearly not unhappy about the resolution of this crisis. The question is, who are these new leaders? Who is al-Jawlani? Is he a Democrat? He used to be aligned with al-Qaeda. He then said they're branched off. He's trying to portray himself as somebody who can do what the Turks are calling for now, which is a national unity government, a government that respects the minorities, for instance, the Alawite minority, which supported the Assad regime, that keeps the territorial integrity of Syria. So that's for that. Now, the big picture in the region is that Iran and Russia were the main Assad backers. The minute they saw Aleppo and the others falling over the last week, they pulled back their support. Iran has been moving its troops and its foot soldiers on the ground out of Syria, and the Russians are saying we no longer support Assad, but the Russians are still there because they have a warm water port on the Mediterranean there. So Now, all these regional governments, the regional nations, and including the United States, are trying to figure out what is the best way forward for Syria. It's clearly a changed situation with Iran weakened after the Israeli attacks, with Iran weakened after the degradation of Hezbollah, with Russia weakened because of the war in Ukraine. And none of these big backers who for 13 years had invested in Assad against the people of Syria, none of these backers are willing to go out on a limb for him. So it's a new day in Syria, and we're not sure how it's going to turn out, but we're certainly going to keep watching.
Y en una región tan volátil como Medio Oriente, es inevitable que el colapso de un régimen como el de Bashar al-Assad tenga extensas y profundas repercusiones. Voy a Atlanta, ahí está mi compañero Rafael Romo, para que se ha unido a esta cobertura de equipo desde Atlanta para hablar sobre la forma que han respondido países como Rusia, Estados Unidos e Israel. Rafa, gracias por estar acá con nosotros. Evidentemente, preocupaciones e intereses muy diferentes, pero tú me lo vas a decir. Adelante.
Sí, efectivamente, intereses muy diferentes. Rey, es una región muy volátil, como bien lo acabas de decir, y la gran interrogante que surgió tras el colapso del régimen de Bashar al-Assad era tanto su paradero como el de su familia. La duda se disipó en las últimas horas cuando el gobierno de Rusia confirmó que el dictador ya está refugiado en territorio ruso. A través de la agencia rusa de noticias TASS, el gobierno ruso dijo lo siguiente, y aquí cito: Assad y su familia han llegado a Moscú. Rusia, por razones humanitarias, les ha concedido asilo. Así fue como lo dijeron. Por su parte, el líder del principal grupo rebelde, Abu Mohammed al-Jolani, en sus primeras declaraciones públicas en Damasco, y a quien veíamos en la entrevista con Yomana Karache, calificó el derrocamiento de Assad como una victoria para toda la nación islámica. El grupo de al-Jolani es conocido como Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, o por sus siglas HTS. Se formó a partir de una filial de Al-Qaeda, y sus rebeldes han dicho que los grupos minoritarios de Siria serán protegidos. De este lado del mundo, Rey, el presidente de Estados Unidos, Joe Biden, calificó el colapso del régimen de Bashar al-Assad como un momento de riesgo y a la vez una oportunidad. Escuchemos lo que dijo más temprano en la Casa Blanca.
At long last, the Assad regime has fallen.
Por fin ha caído el régimen de Assad. Este régimen ha brutalizado, torturado y asesinado literalmente a cientos de miles de sirios inocentes. La caída del régimen es un acto fundamental de justicia. Es un momento de oportunidad histórica para que el sufrido pueblo sirio construya un futuro mejor para su orgulloso país.
To build a better future for their proud country.
Y Rey, en una noticia de última hora, CNN se ha enterado de que ya hubo una conversación entre el secretario de Defensa de Estados Unidos, Lloyd Austin, y su contraparte turco, Yaşar Güler. Según un comunicado del Pentágono, tanto Austin como Güler estuvieron de acuerdo en que hay que tomar medidas para proteger a la población civil, incluidas las minorías étnicas y religiosas, además de colaborar para prevenir una mayor escalada y derrotar al grupo terrorista ISIS. Rey.
Ahora, Rafa, ¿qué tipo de repercusiones podríamos esperar tras el colapso del régimen de Bashar al-Assad? ¿Y existe el riesgo de algún tipo de acción militar ahí en el Medio Oriente?
Sí, Rey, muy buena pregunta. No solamente existe el riesgo, sino que las primeras repercusiones de la caída del régimen sirio ya ocurrieron. El primer ministro israelí, Benjamin Netanyahu, le ordenó este domingo al ejército de su país que tomara la zona neutral en la frontera de Israel con Siria. En otras palabras, sus tropas ya tomaron ese territorio. Vamos a escuchar sus palabras.
Que ninguna fuerza hostil se incruste justo al lado de la frontera con Israel. Se trata de una posición defensiva temporal hasta que se encuentre un acuerdo adecuado.
Palabras del primer ministro de Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. Otra repercusión inmediata fue un ataque de Estados Unidos contra el grupo terrorista ISIS. En un comunicado, el Comando Central dio a conocer que Estados Unidos bombardeó más de 75 objetivos de ISIS en Siria este domingo. El comandante del CENTCOM, el general Eric Kurila, indicó que todas las organizaciones en Siria deben saber que las haremos responsables, dijo, si se asocian con ISIS o lo apoyan de cualquier manera. En otras palabras, Rey, existe el temor de que, dadas las circunstancias, haya un vacío de poder y se aprovechen los grupos terroristas para sacarle provecho a esta situación. Como decíamos al principio, Rey, muy, muy volátil. Vuelvo contigo.
Se habla de momentos históricos, de una nueva era en el Medio Oriente, de que la realidad estratégica en esta zona del mundo está cambiando de manera decisiva. Y todo esto después de ese avance fulgurante que ha habido durante 11 días de las fuerzas rebeldes que estaban arrinconadas en el norte de Siria, pero que estos días comenzaron a avanzar de una manera rapidísima. Se hicieron con el control de las 4 ciudades principales de Siria, la última de ellas, la capital, Damasco. Vemos que en todo este camino prácticamente no se encontraron con oposición del ejército sirio, el cual simplemente escapaba cuando se daba cuenta de que los aliados que tenían en meses, en años pasados, muy especialmente Rusia, Irán y sobre todo quizás la milicia proiraní de Hezbollah, estaban notablemente debilitados y esto no les permitía recibir ayuda de ellos. Entonces hemos visto cómo en las distintas ciudades donde se han hecho con el control han destruido símbolos del poder del régimen de Bashar al-Assad, de también el padre de Bashar, Hafez al-Assad, quien también estuvo décadas con el control de Siria, y todo esto en una realidad en la cual quizás de manera también simbólica es de señalar que Abu Muhammad el-Julani, el líder del grupo Tahrir el-Sham, el principal de los rebeldes, llegó a la mezquita principal de Damasco precisamente como símbolo de que se hace con el control. Es de señalar, eso sí, que hasta ahora lo que vemos por parte de los rebeldes es que de alguna forma intentan el hacerse con el control, pero sin el terminar, sin destruir los estamentos del poder. No hacer el error, por ejemplo, que ocurrió en Irak, donde la destrucción de estos estamentos dificultó enormemente el funcionamiento del Estado. Aquí vemos que la intención es aparentemente el seguir con esos estamentos de poder, al menos durante una época de transición. Vemos, eso sí, que los rebeldes llegaron también a las residencias, los palacios relacionados con Bashar el-Assad, con su familia, y todo esto cuando vemos que, eso sí, lo que dicen estos rebeldes es que en lo que respecta a Rusia van a respetar sus bases militares en el interior del país. Por ahora también son delegaciones diplomáticas, y todo esto cuando vemos que, eso sí, se trata de una realidad totalmente distinta a nivel regional, donde el elemento más afectado es aparentemente el eje de resistencia que había formado Irán. Ahora se encuentra, por ejemplo, Irán sin la capacidad de poder pasar armas desde su país a través de Irak, Siria y llegar hasta el Líbano para ayudar a Hezbollah, un movimiento que ahora se encuentra arrinconado en el interior del Líbano, sin la capacidad de antaño de recibir grandes cantidades de armas de la República Islámica de Irán. También Israel sigue muy de cerca estos acontecimientos. Es de señalar que se ha hecho el ejército israelí con una franja de terreno más allá de los altos del Golán. Dicen que están entrando en territorios en los cuales no se encontraban hasta ahora como medida de precaución por si acaso estos rebeldes, que todavía se desconoce exactamente cuáles pueden ser sus intenciones. Hay esperanzas, pero junto a esto hay también peligros, pudieran intentar el llegar al interior de Israel.